He said, because so many leaders lose the ability to learn new stuff because it takes humility. And a lot of leaders, once they've been leading so long, get very comfortable and complacent. And something I always say that I heard from a long time ago, on the heels of comfort is complacency, and on the heels of complacency is destruction. And I thought, man, that's so appropriate based on this conversation. So welcome to the EQ Gangster podcast, where you will learn practical tools to grow your mental and emotional health and intelligence to be the best version of yourself, both at work and at home. It is real, raw, and transformational. The journey of emotional growth isn't easy, but it's worth it. I believe in you. EQ Gangsters, post jiu-jitsu class, lessons from the mat. Talking with a senior Air Force leader who is in the process of getting out, was just dropping some serious skinny. And I want to share some of those lessons that he shared with me. Hopefully I can get him on the podcast. So shout out to Joe for sharing some tremendous wisdom and insights with me. He started jiu-jitsu. He's been rolling maybe a couple years less than me. So I've been rolling for 6.5 years. I think he's been rolling for like maybe 4.5 years. And check this out. Why did he start jiu-jitsu? I'm thinking about doing a series of interviews with some jiu-jitsu people about why they started jiu-jitsu. This is fascinating. One of the most fascinating reasons for starting jiu-jitsu that I've ever heard. He said, I got so comfortable in the Air Force as a senior leader, and I was crushing it. I was doing a great job leading and stuff. And but that being said, I also I was doing so great in the military, but I was still doing a really good job of beating myself up. And because I could have done better and worked harder and scored even higher, et cetera, all the different mind games that a lot of us end up playing. And he said the reason he started jiu-jitsu was because he was getting so two reasons. One, he was getting complacent from winning all the time in the military and just winning awards and medals and all these different things. And because he was beating himself up so much because he felt like he should have even been doing better, he's like, man, I need to have somebody else beat me up instead of myself beat me up, so that I can focus my energy outside instead of inside so much. I'm spending so much energy beating my own self up, and I need to change the locus of, kind of the locus of control. That's not, I'm kind of mixing up a concept there. I kind of know what I'm wanting to say in my head, but it's not coming out very well. He wanted someone else to do the beating up so that it could be like him against somebody else versus him against himself. And so that he could learn how to learn again with humility. He said, because so many leaders lose the ability to learn new stuff because it takes humility. And a lot of leaders, once they've been leading so long, get very comfortable and complacent. And something I always say that I heard from a long time ago, on the heels of comfort is complacency, and on the heels of complacency is destruction. And I thought, man, that's so appropriate based on this conversation. So I just thought, man, what a fascinating reason to start jiu-jitsu. And honestly, that's funny. I never made this connection that's actually the same reason that I started jujitsu ish. So my daughter started jujitsu 3 months before I did, and I'm like, man, I want, because I was a taekwondo guy. I did taekwondo when I was a kid, but I was like a brown belt in my business, in the business world that I was in. I was like a brown belt, and I hadn't, you know, I had gotten very comfortable. I won't say that I had gotten comfortable winning. I was doing very well in business, but I had gotten complacent because I hadn't really been challenged. I had, you couldn't give me a business scenario that I hadn't seen, faced, or that I didn't know how to address. And so I was very comfortable, arguably very complacent. And I'm like, man, I want some quality time with my daughter. It was one of her love languages. And I just, and I want to be challenged again. I want to get uncomfortable again. But what was fascinating was I was terrified. All our instructors at our old gym, shout out to Team Rock peeps and Team Rock coaches in Fayetteville, North Carolina, they were all special forces guys, like legit, like killers, machines. And so I'm like, man, I'm overweight. I'm old. I'm older than everybody in the gym. I don't want to go in. And that was one of the reasons, in addition to obviously getting quality time with my daughter. I'm like, no, dude, the reason I want to do this is because I'm afraid, because I'm scared, because I'm nervous, because I'm afraid I'm going to get balled up, because I'm afraid of that my pride and ego are going to get hurt. Like, that is why I need to do this. And so back to Joe's story, the gym that he first walked into in Boston was like, hey, are you sure? Like, how about we just, you just do like a trial period of like a week of free classes and then you can make a decision. He's like, no, I'm not taking free trial lessons. I'm starting today. I need to get my butt kicked, and this is what I'm gonna do. This is how I'm gonna do it. So take my money and beat me up. And man, it was, I think it takes a big person to do that. It's, that's another reason, he also shared, one of the things about jujitsu, so many life lessons, like so many life lessons. Okay, tonight, we rolled 10 minutes tonight. So it was like 2 5-minute rounds. And he's like 6'3", I don't know, 200 pounds, but jacked, like not like fluffy like me at 250. He's 200, 205, 210, 6'3", and muscles. And he's probably, I don't know, 35, maybe 40. And purple belt, very technical, very flexible. Not quite as flexible as my daughter, but still, for a dude, he's stupid flexible. And I always start in a kind of defensive position because I'm bigger than most people. And I say this all the time, right? And so I like to let them work their offense and see how I can learn to escape and stuff. And so I let it, had him start on top and work his game. And I knew it was going to be brutal for me because he's, again, way more technical, stronger, more flexible. And sure enough, man, the first 5 minutes, he absolutely dominated me. And he tapped me to a Turco Plata or something like that. It was a sweet move. And so, boom, tapped me. And it was kind of like towards the end of the 5 minutes, the first 5 minutes, bell rang. And he's like, hey, dude, let's just keep going. I'm like, perfect. So we kept going. He went for a triangle. Sorry for my non-jiu-jitsu people. You just have to bear with me with these terms. Went for a triangle. I saw it coming. So, shoulder bumped his legs out of the way, got inside control, which is my happy place. And then for the next 5 minutes, I controlled the round and, got into my favorite position, which is I go from side control. I give him some shoulder pressure. I transition to mount. Then I transition to arm triangle. And heck, a lot of people tap just to my side control. And then in mount, a lot of people, 99% of people tap for my arm triangle. Well, Joe didn't because he again, he's so technical, and I didn't have the self-awareness to notice that a little teeny bit of his chin was in the choke, which was giving him just enough air to not tap. Now he was turning blue, but he could still breathe a little bit. So boom. I never tapped him. I went for it a couple times, boom, and I couldn't get it. So I readjusted the side control. Boom, then I transition back to arm triangle, and I couldn't get it. So, boom, the round was over. So I'm like, Joe, man, help me out, dude. Why didn't I get the arm triangle? And he gave me this awesome tip. The point being, he's like, we were talking about life and stuff and what he's got going on. And he's like, man, that's just such a life principle. He's like, sometimes in life is tough. You get a lot of pressure. Life sucks sometimes. And he's like, all you need is a little teeny bit of air. You need a little teeny bit of space to get you through that round of life. And I thought, man, that is so powerful. And then he also shared a fast. So that's huge. That's a huge point right there. So how can you do that? How can you get better and more intentional at getting space, getting a little bit of air when life is pressuring you, life has you in an arm triangle? How can you get a little teeny bit of air to keep going through the round? Or maybe you need to tap and start the round over again, right? Are you aware of that? What are some ways that you can, kind of create space for yourself if life is arm triangling you, right? Or you're getting triangled. So the other thing he said was about leadership. He's like, man, for so many years, my whole goal was I want to be the best. I want to be the best. I want to be the best. But then it shifted once I was put in charge of a whole bunch of people and I kept I want to be the best. I want to be the best. It created a me versus them mentality in my unit. And that doesn't create a good culture. That's not a very positive culture when the team is competing with the leader. So then he's like, I realized like, man, no, how can I get my team to win? How can I get my leaders to win? He's like, forget about me being the best. Screw that. I want to help. And I thought, man, what a fascinating concept. Like what if companies made a metric or KPI, key performance indicator, for a leader to that what they're getting rated on is how well their team does, not how well they do as a leader. How well does their team do? How many leaders can they create coming up behind them? How many people can they train to take their job? And, and I'm sure there's some organizations that maybe do that, but I don't know. It was just a powerful thing because a lot of times as leaders, we can be selfish and like, no, it's all about me. And I thought Joe just has such a great mindset because he's an amazing teacher also. And he's like, man, you have to be a good teacher and a good leader. You got to be an empathetic leader. You can't forget what it was like to be new or to learn something new. He said, that's why I love jujitsu, because you're always learning new stuff. It's hard to get a big head and a big ego because there's always somebody that can ball you up. And just to put yourself in a position as a leader to always be learning new stuff. He said, because that's a skill, right? That's another thing he said I thought was fascinating. And I thought, man, it is true. And in my opinion, it takes humility. This may not be totally thought through all the way, but I think it takes humility to be a lifelong learner, because you always have to be have a white belt mentality at some area of your life, right? Maybe you're a black belt in one area, a brown belt in another area, a purple belt in another area, a blue belt in another area. But if you're always learning, you should always be a white belt in some area and have that white belt mentality of like, man, I've got to learn. So anyway, Joe shared so many awesome lessons. I wanted to share some of those lessons with you all. Again, hopefully my goal is to get them on the podcast. And I'd love to hear from you all. If you would take a 20 seconds and just write a review, and maybe write in that review the specific lesson that you took away from a particular episode. If there's a particular episode that impacted you or affected you, if you would share it with a friend, family member, or colleague that you feel would really encourage or uplift, that would be awesome too. It'd really mean a lot. Because, my goal is to create as many emotionally healthy, emotionally intelligent leaders as possible. When we do that, we get great, high-performing teams and organizations that love each other, that care about each other, that are accomplishing amazing results and making the world a better place, leaving the world better than when they found it. Thank you for letting me be a part of your journey, for you being a part of my journey. And emotionally healthy leaders create emotionally healthy organizations and cultures, which lead to maximized, optimized results, outcomes, performance, and engagement. This episode is sponsored by Classical Conversations. Since 1997, Classical Conversations has been equipping families like yours with the resources to homeschool with confidence, following a classical curriculum rooted in a Christ-centered worldview alongside other families in a local community. Homeschooling is doable with Classical Conversations. Check out classicalconversations.com/Gibbons for more information. Again, that's classicalconversations.com/Gibbons, Gibbens.